Hello, welcome to the Motorsport Review. I am your host once again, Perry Brown, and here to talk about another Formula One race. Yes, it was the Miami Sprint Grand Prix weekend, a bumper weekend, lots of action, and here to talk through it, here for the last sprint race weekend as well in China. Welcome back, Eddie. Eddie, how are you?
I'm doing absolutely well today. Honestly, it's a wonderful day here in Canada, so finally warm outside, finally getting sun, so it couldn't be a better day. And after a chaotic weekend, today's a great day.
Yeah, it's good to reflect. Yes, here in the UK, it's a bank holiday, so I've not had work today, been out and about. The sun that we've had is just starting to be covered up by cloud, typical British weather again. So yeah, good to be in here instead now and talking about Formula One, which is my favorite place to be, obviously. Don't tell my wife that that's my favorite place. But let's get straight into it. So much happened across this weekend. So let's talk about it. And we have to start. Let's skip practice. That was just practice. Sprint qualifying. And I've written down two things for sprint qualifying. So absolutely, let's start with Andrea, Kimi, Antonelli securing that pole position, the youngest ever pole position. What did you make of that?
I was absolutely delighted to see Kimi on pole. I gotta be honest, when they announced him to be the second Mercedes driver, I had some apprehensions. You're not sure, a rookie in a team as big as Mercedes, how is he going to do? What's going to happen? But ever since the beginning of the season, Kimi has proved himself time and time again, and the pole was just a matter of time at this point. And it was honestly amazing. I was talking with a few people in a F1 related group chat, and we were all ecstatic, even though practically none of us are Mercedes fans. We're all ecstatic to see how well he's performed, and it was frankly a well-earned pole position. So I'm absolutely delighted to see him performing this in his rookie year. It's honestly amazing.
Yeah, it was incredible. I'm in the same chats, and most of them with McLaren fans. So again, none of us particularly Kimi or Mercedes fans particularly, and we were all just the same way, just ecstatic. It was a very popular pole position, and everyone's going, okay, this is it. He is the real deal. Because I had the same apprehensions. I said, this guy's very young. Is it the right time to step into Mercedes? It's not, someone steps into a Haas or a Sauber or anyone else, you sort of go, well, they've got time to develop and grow, but you get a Mercedes seat and you've got to deliver. And this was very much him delivering, especially against Mr. Saturday in the other Mercedes. So yeah, even when it came up and he set his time, he was ahead of Verstappen. Lando Norris crossed the line, didn't beat him. McLaren fan, of course I want to see that. Piastri crossed the line, he doesn't beat him, of course I want to see that. But it was very popular. It was a very popular pole position. So absolutely well done to him for that. And yeah, hopefully more of the same to come. The other thing that I've noted from that, and I want to get your view from this, you're wearing a Red Bull hat for those that are listening rather than watching. I had Verstappen not investigated for impeding 3 different drivers. Now, one of those, he got in the way or upset the rhythm of Yuki Tsunoda, his teammate. It's never going to be investigated, that one. But I believe it was Lando Norris was one of them potentially where he got in the way, and another one wasn't looked at. So did you catch this? Did you think the same thing? Did you think he was quite lucky?
Yes. One of the things I just wanted to come back to with Kimi as well, just while we're still on that subject, him being at a Mercedes seat was also a great step, considering the seat he had to fill. Obviously, it was Lewis Hamilton's seat, but there's just a little side note that I wanted to.
Absolutely. Big shoes
to fill, and he's filled them perfectly right now. But yes, as for Max, I honestly just saw the whole investigating about Yuki and not Lando or any other driver. I'm not honestly very, very sure. I watched sprint quali, and I don't know why I didn't catch the other like, how do you say it? Wow, I forgot.
Impeding. I think it was Lance Stroll, wasn't it? They showed Lance Stroll coming along the back straight, and in the braking zone he has to go round Verstappen, who's just dawdling on the racing line, and that's why I thought it was pretty slam dunk. Lance had to do a big move around him, but yeah, it wasn't looked at.
I'm gonna be 100% honest. I did not notice. The only thing that I noticed was about Yuki, because they talked about it on the streaming, and they talked about it like on the channel I was watching, and they thought that was going to get investigated and did not. But as for Stroll and Lando, I did not notice anything, unfortunately. I don't know if you wanted to add maybe more since you've noticed it.
No, it's I mean, it's here or there. Everyone, I believe, made it through. I think Lance Stroll made it through that SQ1 session as well. So I don't think it was really much to talk about. It's obviously only Yuki Tsunoda, therefore, that would have dropped out. And as I say, I don't think he's going to make much of an issue of it. I think if he came on the radio and said to Red Bull, he held me up, I think they'd say, shut up, it's Max Verstappen. So yeah, no, it was much of a nothing. As you say, most people have forgotten about it. It happened so long ago. It was 3 days ago now that we're talking about. So yeah, it was much of a muchness. But yeah, it led us straight into the sprint race on Saturday. I was going to say Saturday morning, but very early Saturday morning, I imagine, for yourself. Saturday.
Not so early. Was it about 11:30? Well, 12, since they started the race. Yeah, later because of the rain.
I don't know what I'm thinking. It was late for us. So it was midday. Oh my god, I don't know where my head's at. I'm all out of sync with times. But anyway, into the sprint race, and I mean, it did start early because out come the cars to the grid, and Charles Leclerc into a wall. And I had to say, what were Ferrari thinking? Putting them out on intermediates on a very damp track, on literally just driving, getting to the grid. I mean, same question to you. Like, what were Ferrari thinking?
Literally, the first thing I did as I opened the channel on which I'm watching, like as I opened the stream, the first thing I see is Leclerc crashing. I was like, what was that? What happened? What was the idea behind putting him on intermediates in the rain? And it's raining heavy. They had to cancel the F1 Academy race. They had to, like, what was happening? I still don't get the whole situation. It just felt surreal. It felt unreal. Like, how did this happen? You're in Formula One.
Yeah. I mean, watching Charles on board, he just had no hope. As soon as the car went, it was gone. He had no control over that. So completely removing blame from Leclerc. And the fact that Hamilton was also on Inters, then I would say 100% that's a team call that they sent him out. Hamilton questioned it as well. Like, what the hell are we doing out here? And I just think if you, as you say, it's the lap to the grid. If you want to try out the intermediates, it's just not worth it. Just try out the wets. And if you go, yeah, I've got bags of grip, it's really not that bad. Then you go, okay, we'll put the Inters on for the race, as everyone else did for that first start that was later aborted. So it was crazy. And even worse, obviously, when he got a penalty for carrying on as well. It wasn't a sporting penalty. He got, I believe, a fine and points and reprimands, all this stuff that Formula One drivers that don't really care about when they earn as much as they do.
I did not know he got fined for that. I did not know about that.
So
Wow.
he obviously drove on from where he crashed, and you saw the replays of it shedding bits of the wheel rim, which other drivers could hit, and I think quite rightly so. They now say if you've got a damaged car, don't carry on. So just compounding a very miserable start to the sprint race for Ferrari. But we then got a delayed start. As I say, every team had bolted on intermediates. They set off behind the pace car. Is this America? Is this IndyCar? I don't know. Behind the safety car. And almost immediately, red flag. We're not going to get this race started. And I don't know if you thought the same thing, but they're on intermediates. Like, all the teams have decided the same thing, that this isn't a full wet situation. And yet it's red flagged. So can I ask you, what do you think the wet tyres are actually even for at this point? Do you think it was the right call to delay the start?
I think with what they've shown of like the amount of rain that there was, I think the delayed start might have been the most safest option, even though, like, yes, you have the wet tires, but there's always a chance of an accident, always a chance of like those tires not delivering entirely. Got to take into consideration, obviously, like the temperature of the track, like so many things to take into consideration. And I think that the amount of things you have to take in consideration to have a good race in the rain was too much to handle, and just maybe too difficult to manage. And just simply, if you know that the rain's going to obviously calm down a little bit in a while, you just wait it out. If it's the safest option, like driver safety has always been an issue and it's always heavily discussed. I don't think the FIA wants another situation of like where their credibility is questioned because they decided to send out drivers in the rain. And I think after a race like Brazil, where there was a red flag and it was delayed, and it took so long for them to call red flags and to actually stop the race and just bring out the safety cars, I think that the FIA did not want to risk a Brazil Part 2, and where everyone criticized them for their poor management decisions. So I think it was just best for them to just delay the race, wait it out, and then be more safe.
Yeah, I think you're right. I honestly do. I sort of jokingly launched into it, but I think looking at the radar as they probably did, they went, look, there's a dry patch coming up, and Bernd Mailander, the safety car driver, is a very experienced driver, and if he says, yeah, it's a bit wet out here, then you trust his call. And it was a visibility issue, I think, mainly. But yeah, it's the thing with street races that you go, well, the walls, the furniture, the things that are around the track that are that much closer on a street track do affect things like visibility. So perhaps that was a factor, but ultimately safety has to come first. But it did mean that when we got the sprint race, as we'll come to it meant rather than go from a wet to inter race, potentially we got a inter to dry race. So we still got that excitement of don't they pit on a sprint race. But before all of that, we had Oscar Piastri overtaking Kimi Antonelli down into turn 1. And I was very specific today. I didn't want another McLaren fan sat opposite myself. You've done the job. You got a liked by Pierre Gasly top on as well, just to describe, and a Red Bull hat. So you've done very well. You've fit the brief perfectly. Thank you so much for that. And this is the reason why, because there was quite a few instances that involved McLaren today. So I'm not going to give my say just yet, but passes Antonelli down into turn 1. Similar move to what we saw in Saudi Arabia, where takes the inside, moves across. Obviously, Red Bull, Max Verstappen incensed by that in Saudi Arabia. Kimi Antonelli, I don't think that impressed, but give us your take. Was Oscar lucky not to get a penalty?
I'm trying to remember how it happened, but I think obviously Oscar is a pretty clean driver, and I think in this instance probably shouldn't have been a penalty. I think Kimi's still learning as well about sprint races, about being on pole, about a different driving style. So at one point you just gotta learn, maybe the hard way, but you just gotta learn. That's my only take on this. Oscar is a pretty clean driver, honestly, and I think it's just that Kimi's still learning, and he's still a rookie. So yeah, you just gotta learn the hard way at one point. Might not be the nicest way, but you're gonna have to learn.
And he did say exactly that. He said, okay, this is how we go about it. And I feel like so many drivers have had that moment up against Max Verstappen, like, okay, this is how we can go racing. And I remember Charles Leclerc saying that in 2018 or 2019 in Austria when he went against him, and Max drove him off the road, and then he got a penalty for overtake, something like that. And then they said, okay, this is how we go racing. And Piastri's had moments like that. And now he is the one saying, okay, no, this is allowed. This is the rules. If I've got the inside, I can drive to the outside line. He's done it the last 2 races now. And as I say, in my head, I thought, oh, he's maybe a bit luckier here than even in Saudi Arabia. But even in wet conditions, it's worse, I'd say, than it was in Saudi Arabia. So, and I'm biased. I'm a McLaren fan. I've got I've got a McLaren top on. But apart from that, I'm as McLaren through and through as you get. So I'm always going to say that you shouldn't have got a penalty. But I was watching that thinking, lucky boy, perhaps.
I remember the commentator, the analysts on the channel I was watching on saying a lot of penalties in turn one are not really investigated because it's turn one. It's like, obviously there's going to be chaos since everything is so close, everything and everyone is so close to each other. So yeah, they're probably going to investigate less the penalties in turn one than if it was, for example, like, I don't know, lap 20 or like mid race. So maybe Oscar got a little bit lucky, but it was not also the most obvious penalty worth move ever either. It's rough driving, it's driving, and you just, yeah, it happens. And well, Kimi's going to learn from this and come back strong in the next race, and he's already done it for this race. So yeah, I think you might not be as biased as you thought you are.
I try not to be fair. I try not to be. I try to in situations like this. You see online people that go, "Oh my god, this is utterly ridiculous. How can they investigate 5-second penalty for that? Yeah, racing's gone mad." And you go, "Hang on, just switch the cars. Just say it right. Okay, in this instance, Antonelli goes up the inside of Piastri, runs him off the road. How do I feel about it now?" And in my head, I just go, "Well, I've been there. You know, Verstappen versus Norris, Austin." I mentioned this after the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. You switch 2 cars around and I go, "That's just turn one racing as the rules prescribe it now. If you've got the inside and it's turn one and you've made it to the apex first, you run the other person off the road. You don't leave them room to come back at you. They don't get a penalty." And yeah, that's how it is. So
yeah, and
yes.
Kimi could not expect Oscar to just let him pass or give him the position. That's not how you race. That's not how you race in Formula One. And that's not, like, we're not playing nice. Like, we can play clean. We can. No one's going to be like, "Here, I'll let you pass." No, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it's part of the learning curve for Kimi. He'll come back. As we said, we were already so impressed with him being on pole position. It wasn't the best start, but it was a difficult start for him. So I'm sure next time he'll be the one getting the run on Piastri and putting him under pressure. So it was good to see him starting off the front row.
I'm pretty sure in a few years, Kimi is going to be one of the top drivers and in contention for a championship. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, race 7 of his Formula One career, we're already there knowing that he's going to be a championship contender in years to come. So yeah, absolutely. So as the race progressed, I think a few people went wide at turn 1, but there wasn't particularly really much going. You know, Kimi, when he came back on the track, sort of slowed down a few people. Other people got ahead, but really the first sort of signs that we had that this was going to transition to a slick race was Lewis Hamilton really struggling, going backwards, couldn't keep the tires, and basically the team just went, "We're going to go for that gamble." A few others outside the points did, but when Hamilton did it from inside the points, I thought, here we go. And it turned into one of the calls of the race. He finished on the podium because of it. So yeah. I've put here experience or luck. Was it the fact that he was going backwards and it was like the Ferrari just said, "We got to roll the dice," or was that I nearly said 8-time champion, would have upset you slightly. So was that the call of a 7-time champion? Because as we know, Ferrari don't make those kind of calls. That's not in Ferrari's strategy book to make a good decision, is it? So yeah, was that luck or experience? Would you put that down to?
I'm tempted to say maybe a bit of both. Obviously,
that's
we
the
know
cop
that
out answer. You can't say bit of
no,
both.
You can't have, obviously, this decision is not a Ferrari decision. With the amount of decisions they made, the bad decision just before the sprint race, we have prime example of an awful decision. This is not a Ferrari decision. It's a Lewis Hamilton decision.
Correct.
But is it luck or experience? I would say a bit of both, because obviously you always have to take a gamble with pitting, what type of tires you're going to use. Like, it's a bit of a gamble, especially in those conditions. But also Lewis has had that experience. He's not a rookie. It's not his second or third race. He knows what he's doing to a certain level. So can we just all attribute it to luck? I don't think so. But all to experience as well? No, because, well, we've seen that Miami is a circuit that somehow powers on luck with the safety cars and with other decisions. So I think it would be safe to say that it's, a bit of both.
That's fair. That's absolutely fair. I'd put it sort of 85-90% experience, but there is that luck element. You know, he could have come out the pits, it's too wet, and put it straight in a wall, and then it would just be like people going, well, it was too wet, and maybe they then blame him, maybe they blame Ferrari, probably, but you know, the fact that it's turned into a podium was brilliant. You know, from losing a car before the race to a podium, an unexpected podium, we have to say, for Lewis Hamilton. It was a great call by them, and him stopping when he did produced everyone else in the pits, and we then got a couple of kerfuffles. Now, Behrman got a 5-second penalty for an unsafe release, I think in front of Hulkenberg, but I've not seen it. I just know he got a penalty. But the big one was obviously Verstappen released straight into the side of Antonelli. And now I was going to watch this before we went live and recorded it, and I've not done it. I can't remember whether the person in front was saying hold and Verstappen just went anyway, whether the lights were green or red. But straight into the side of Antonelli, he gets a 10-second penalty. Now I'm going to ask you whether you think this was fair, bearing in mind Kimi Antonelli effectively had a drive-through penalty, because obviously him being driven into, he couldn't make his pit stop, and he had to carry on through the pit lane and pit on the next lap to get his slick tires. So 10 seconds, it turned very painful, and he did finish behind Kimi Antonelli. But do we think that was fair in the situation?
Okay, was it fair? Absolutely. But
no, I agree.
I think these types of penalties should go out to the team and not to the driver, because this was a team error and not a driver error. And I heard Verstappen's radio afterwards. He was like, "Come on, guys, what was that?" And he apologized to Kimi right after. He owned up to it. So I think that it shouldn't have affected his race. It should have been a team fine. It should have been a team penalty of some sort, but not a driver penalty, because this is a team mistake, not a driver mistake. And this, had it been Verstappen's call, there wouldn't have been a crash, and nothing would have happened, and Kimi would have been able to pit. And so this was a team mistake. And yes, the penalty was deserved. I'm not going to go out and say, yeah, the FIA is. No. It was deserved. There was clearly a penalty, but was it deserved to Max? Absolutely not.
Yeah, it's kind of awkward, isn't it, separating the team from the driver? Because it's the same as when, you know, driver comes in for the pit stop, attaches all four wheels, they get the green light, they drive out onto the track, and then a wheel comes flying off the car. Now the penalty is always going to go to that driver, but it's the team, isn't it? As you say, someone on that wheel gun's got the signal that the wheel nut's tight enough, and it's not. So trying to separate the team from the driver who's made the fault, it's very difficult. And yeah, I'd agree with you that, yeah, the penalty was fair, that someone needs to be penalised. It would be someone in that team. And yeah, it was very costly for Verstappen. As you say on the radio, quite rightly remembered that call straight away of, come on guys, we're better than this. And yeah, it was lucky, I think, that it didn't affect Antonelli more. As I say, he got a drive through, but with all the penalties that came through, he still got in the points, and Verstappen didn't. He finished way down the order. So yeah, it was lucky that it didn't cause more damage as well from that.
As much as it pains me to admit, the penalty was deserved. And when you look at the stats, it's the first time since, I don't remember what year, but it's the first time in a while that Max has finished outside of the points, excluding like DNFs and DSQ. And I think it's the first time since like 2018.
Yeah, I was going to say 2018. I can't remember what race it was. It's a phenomenal record that he's got, finishing in the points that comes to an end. So
Belgium 2016. I just Googled it. That was the last time he finished outside the points, excluding DNFs and obviously like him not starting the race or him not finishing the race, but finishing a race outside the points. 2016. It's been 9 years. It's crazy.
I don't think you were born. That's phenomenal.
Ouch.
Ouch. Take it as like, you're so young compared to me. Like, but
I was well born.
I have to get it in there because normally I think on that recording you absolutely killed me for how old I am. So it's good to pay it back in return in kind of how young you are.
I am
But
young.
yeah, that's an incredible run since 2016, especially like the transition to Honda units as well. We know how good they were in the beginning. So yeah, phenomenal record. Unfortunately comes to an end, but it just means that the next run starts surely. And talking of light penalties, the next thing that I've got is Alonso, Liam Lawson come together. And I mean, I can't explain this one. Lawson effectively ends. Alonso was in the wall. He was out of the race and he got a 5-second penalty. Now, there's no way that's not a light penalty, is there?
I have a lot of things to say about Lawson, and this is not very nice things. So, but yes, for me, it was a deserved penalty, and it sucks for Lawson, but it's racing. It's a penalty, and it's just how it goes. But he's out there breaking records that are not necessarily supposed to be broken.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a guy who's had his confidence knocked this season. Demoted after it was 2 races, wasn't it, when Tsunoda got the jump, and he's out there trying to race. He's going backwards through the field. He's losing positions. He's racing against Alonso, and he's off the circuit. And I did just wonder, is this a little bit of a hot-headed, I'm going to rejoin anyway and see what happens, or was it just a bad lack of judgment or thinking he's not going to lose more places? But he literally went off the road and rejoined in Alonso's rear tire. So 5 seconds for that seemed incredibly light, really.
Yes. Yeah. Considering for not necessarily almost the same thing, but for a similar result, Max got 10 seconds for unsafe release and for crashing into Antonelli, and him crashing into Alonso and causing Alonso to not finish the race. 5 seconds is extremely light. And that's one of the problems with the FIA, is that the penalties are not necessarily consistent.
Yeah.
But I think that penalty was 100% deserved.
Yeah, he definitely deserved a penalty. I was shocked it was 5 seconds. And it was. Yeah, I'm sure Alonso took it very well on the chin. That one.
There's no way that Lawson is getting redemption in Alonso's eyes after that.
No, not at all.
There's no chance that these two are ever going to get along.
So let's then wrap up with going back to McLaren. Lando gets lucky in Miami again. Yes, again we see everyone putting in. McLaren seemed happy they had the advantage. They had even an 8-second advantage, I think, at the point when everyone else is pitting. They chose not to bring either in, and then it became very clear they needed to, and suddenly they couldn't double stack. They were that close. And so Oscar, being ahead on the road, he takes the first pit stop, and I was sat there watching this thinking, Lando's at risk here. Hamilton's coming through very quickly. Even Verstappen with half a front wing is going to get a lap on dry tires more, and I thought he could be a risk, and maybe a safety car would be good right about now. And up steps Liam Lawson to create the moment that gave us that.
The man, the moment, the legend.
So yeah, I mean, I was very happy this was for a sprint race. I've got to be honest. I can't have thought how people might have taken this online had it been for the race win, and he'd taken that 14-point swing from second to first in the main race. This was just a 2-point swing. Norris gains 1 point and Piastri obviously loses 1. So it was lucky. It was lucky. I think we can talk about like the pace that he had last year, but yeah, here again, he wasn't getting ahead of Piastri without it. So yeah, fair play, and 1-2, and a bit of a head start into what we would see on Sunday as well. Yeah. But we'll get to that in a moment. So a sprint with so much going on. I feel like we've been talking for like 20 minutes, and we basically just covered the sprint
No, it's
section of the
crazy.
weekend.
This weekend feels like such a fever dream, and it feels like so much, like it feels like everything happened throughout like 1 week and not 3 days.
Yeah. Like watching Le Mans or Indy 500, you know, these things take
Exactly.
a lot longer. Whilst I've mentioned Le Mans and the Indy 500, they are coming up, so I thought I'd just do a little small plug for what might be coming up on the Motorsport Review. We will be covering the Indy 500. I've got some exciting things coming soon with that, and of course I've got ideas and plans for the Le Mans 24 hours. So yes, we will be covering both of those events, obviously making up the Triple Crown, and with, I was going to say the next Formula One race being Monaco, but it's not. That's coming up 2 races time. So
Yeah.
we'll be covering the Triple Crown on Motorsport, on the Motorsport Review. So keep an eye out in future for those coming up. But let's carry on with Miami for now. And we got to go into qualifying again. So, I mean, I want to give a shout out straight away for Gabriele Bortoleto, very quietly going about his business in a stake which isn't the quickest car. Got into Q2 when his teammate didn't. So I just wanted to give a bit of a round of applause, I think, for that moment there. What do you think of Gabriele Bortoleto when he got announced? Did you think this is a good signing? Now he's Formula 2 champion. He's ex-McLaren Junior driver before this season. But did you think he'd be doing like moments like this, like having a good season, or did you think it was just a bit of a filler before the Audi takeover?
I'm gonna start by saying that I don't necessarily follow F2 as much as I would like to, just because I simply don't have the time to keep up with all the categories. But when they announced Bortoleto, I had no idea who he was. Did a little bit of research on the guy. Was very impressed, and I think so far, obviously, he's not in the Mercedes. He's not like he's in a midfield / back of the field car, so he can't deliver as much as anyone would like to, but he's doing great so far. He's doing pretty decent. Obviously, it's not like podiums and it's not top fives, but for a rookie in his first year and in the car that he's got, it's pretty decent. I'm pretty impressed, but I feel like he's very overshadowed by everyone else, by the rest, especially like Kimi and Isaac and Ali. I think these 3 are kind of like outshining the rest of the rookies, but no, he's doing a pretty decent job.
I think you have to stay grounded. It's really easy to look at people scoring. You know, we've spoken about Kimi Antonelli scoring points, scoring pole positions. Oliver Behrman scoring points in a Haas, which is again arguably a good result for where he should be. Bortoleto, we're not looking at someone who should be scoring points particularly, but it's very difficult when a driver like Bortoleto in a state comes home 12th. That's a good result, but you don't notice it so much. And so that's why I wanted to highlight, you know, this is just getting through to Q2, but in a car, not really getting through. And as I say, against Hulkenberg, a very experienced driver, and he's got pole positions to his name in cars that, again, probably didn't deserve pole positions. So this is a good qualifying driver as well. Yeah. So yeah, a shout out. I wanted to do a shout out for Gabriele Bortoleto. What a good job. So moving on, and we're into Q2, and somebody maybe didn't do quite as good a job, suddenly getting a surprise podium, and Lewis Hamilton, the shock of Q2, undoubtedly going out. Admittedly, I sort of half watched qualifying. I get a bit saturated with so much going on. As you said, it's so busy. We've like, you know, if we had Formula 2, we had Formula Academy this weekend as well. There's so much going on that by the time qualifying rolls around again, you're kind of like, okay, I'm just gonna sort of half watch it, half do something else. So yeah, Hamilton out in Q2, but they didn't look particularly good in Q1. It didn't look like they just made a mistake. It just looked like it was pure pace that he went out. So yeah, what did you make of him going out in Q2?
Well, it's really sad to see him struggling in qualifying, but Lewis seems to be struggling with the Ferrari and struggling to adapt. And while he's able to pull off like podiums and win like in sprint races, I feel like he's still learning how to manage that car. He's still learning how to drive that car, and it's affecting his results. And I was absolutely devastated to see him get the result that he got and get kicked out of Q2 in a Ferrari, and it's a 7-time world champion. That's not necessarily a downfall. I would not call it a downfall, but I would call it hurts. It hurts. It must have hurt him. It hurts the team. It hurts. So I was shocked, and hearing the analysts on where I was watching it, everyone was shocked. Everyone did not understand how we come from years of dominance to struggling to make it out to Q3.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. And I keep saying, like, with Hamilton, with Ferrari, that I'm willing to give him time, because we know what happened when he made the move from McLaren to Mercedes. 2013, he won one race. I know, because it's the one race that I've been to and I witnessed it, and I thought, okay, here's the start of something. But even that was, after that race win, he still struggled through the rest of the season. 2014, he's world champion. So I still think he's looking at this team going, I want to get them in a place where 2026 they're championship contenders. And I know that's probably not what Ferrari fans want to hear in 2025. I mean, until preseason testing had them as not my favorites. Like, I'm not a Ferrari fan ever, but as the favorites for the championship. And then preseason testing, I thought, okay, no, McLaren have something good here, but Ferrari is still going to be second, and they're still going to push them. And it hasn't worked that way so far, but I still believe that he's gone there for a reason, and that, we've got to think that give him time, give him a bit of ironing out for his engineers, as we'll come to in a little bit in the race, that they're going to be strong contenders next year, and that's what this is about. So yeah, hopefully just an unusual Q2 exit, but we'll see in the coming races there. And we then move on to Q3, and the big moment, Max Verstappen pole position once again. You've got to hand it to the guy that come qualifying, come the pressure of Q3, Max Verstappen just stands up and delivers pretty much every time, whether the car's in a good place or not. He just gets in it and puts it right on that edge. So you have to have been impressed with Max Verstappen in that moment.
Oh, absolutely. Especially after the sprint race result, I was devastated. And then seeing him pull off the stunt in qualifying, I was obviously ecstatic. And I feel like this season, if Max was half the driver he is, this season would be boring as hell with the McLaren dominance, because whether you like it or not, McLaren are dominating the season. And I feel like if Max was not there to kind of like push them and give them a bit of a hard time, it would be such a boring season. And him pulling stunts like this when you just don't expect it, this is why I'm a Max fan. This is why this is what you seek in Formula One, and I think it's beautiful.
I've put the question forward on this podcast to other guests and said, Max will come out of the car and say it's not handling well, it's not where he wants it, and then do a performance like this, and you go, well, is the car as bad as he's saying? Is he as good as people make? So where do you sit with that? Do you think this car really is terrible, and he's putting it on a dime and really putting it beyond its limits, if you like, and bringing these performances out of the car?
Well, I think obviously the car has some part to play, because if the car was really that good and it's just like Max is complaining for nothing, we probably would see Tsunoda performing maybe better, or like having better results than, obviously he's pulling top 10s, and I'm amazing for that, but I think it's amazing. But I think that I don't know why Max would lie about the car being bad if the car was good. I think that if Red Bull had a car that's as good or even better than 2023, we would see results like in 2023. We wouldn't see the struggling of getting out in Q3, and we wouldn't see the struggling that we've seen since the beginning of the season. So I think that Max is obviously I'm biased by saying this, but Max is an incredible driver, and if he were to drive a tractor, he would probably still be able to pull it into like a podium just through sheer like pure determination and spite.
Yeah, I say I'm not his biggest fan, so I'm the opposite, opposite view if you say on bias. But I say I like to stand there and take and make note and go, do you know what, you sometimes you do just have to credit the class of the man and his unwavering ability. The hope that having his daughter, and congratulations to Kelly and Max on the birth of Lily, the next Verstappen project, perhaps. I mean, I put this out whilst we're talking about Lily Verstappen. I put it out there that I think she will get to Formula One if that's the route they take. I mean, this is a very bold claim. This is years in the pipeline. I think if that's what's on her cards, then she'll make it because of the name, perhaps, but that racing pedigree. But I've already staken the claim and said Lily could perhaps be the first Formula One Grand Prix winner that's a female. But we'll see. As someone put it to me, they messaged straight away and said, hang on, you're saying that's a bit unfair that we're not going to have a female winner before then. Bear in mind, we're already talking 18 years in the future. But I think if you think about it realistically, we've got to get a woman to Formula One first.
Yes.
And I believe we're between 5 and 10 years away from that. So just really quickly, this is a huge getting way late. We got enough to talk about as it is, but just your view, women in Formula One, and we're talking drivers here because obviously we've got Laura Müller at Haas doing great jobs. We've got Hannah Schmitz. We do have women in Formula One, but drivers not just yet. But your view on the women that are coming through into Formula One, or perhaps challenging to get up the ladder. We've got Abby Pulling, we've got the likes of Dorian Pan coming through. But who do you think, or where do you look when you think of the next woman Formula One driver?
It's a difficult question to answer because I'm going to do a comparison with hockey here in Canada and in North America. It took 100 years, more than 100 years, for a female hockey league, national hockey league, to be put into place. It took before that it was just international competitions and national competitions, but now to have an actual league, the PWHL, that resembles the NHL in terms of teams, in terms of cup contention, in terms of so many things, it took 100 years. So obviously in a motorsport that has been dominated by men for the longest time, it will take time. It's not going to be next year. It's probably going to be, like you said, 5-10 years. And I think that the women that we see right now in F1 Academy, if we can just step them up a little bit and step up the purpose of F1 Academy, because right now they're driving F4 cars. So if you want them to get in F1, give them the opportunity, and we have to broaden those opportunities and to break the glass ceiling that we've put for so many years. But I think that drivers like Maya Wug, Abby Pulling, Dorian Pain, they're forming. They're going to be the drivers that little girls look up to, and they're the ones, like, not necessarily unwillingly, but inadvertently forming the next generation of female drivers. And it's going to be a long process, but it's going to happen soon. I hope it happens soon. And well, if we get Lily Verstappen as the first female F1 champion, I would not be complaining. But it's seeing that there's more and more opportunities for women in motorsport. It's already a great step, and we just need to keep doing better, give women more opportunities, break that glass ceiling, and it's going to happen soon. Whether people who want this to be a male-dominated sport like it or not, it's going to happen. And I would be delighted if it happens, because it means we've stepped up even more. And even if it takes 10 years, even if it only takes 5 years, 5, 10, 20 years. If it happens, it happens, and I'll be delighted to see that happen.
Yeah, I think it's when, not if. Sorry, I've diverted quite a lot. Lily's 3 days old. Give her time. My God, but
She should already be in course by now.
she not driven a go-kart yet. My God, but no. But why I wanted to deflect. Obviously, I went one route and said, by the way, this is the first girl that's going to win a Grand Prix, first female to win a Formula One Grand Prix, which is obviously years in the future, and especially when Max has said he doesn't want his son or daughter racing Formula One.
Yes.
Conversely, I also want to say that if you're seeing the news of Lily Verstappen being born and going, oh, the other drivers must be glad because it's a woman, because it's a girl. No, not it for me. So I wanted to make that very clear that, you know, she has more or as much right, at least, to be in Formula One if that's what they choose. But anyway, after that huge divert, congratulations again to them on the birth of the next Formula One world champion. No pressure. We get into
no
the
pressure
race
when you have a name like Verstappen Piquet. No pressure.
Is it? Yeah. I mean, that's a racing family, isn't it? You sat at that dinner table and what did you do today? Oh, I did guitar lessons. Oh, right. Okay. No. We're not interested. Right. How's your racing going? Oh, I don't actually want to get into racing. What? Like, no. But she'll do whatever she wants to do. That's the main thing. And I'm speaking to someone who's got an 8-year-old daughter who does whatever she wants to do. So
that's one of the things, if I just may finish on that I really liked about Max when he spoke about his kid when obviously she was not born. And I think it was even before they announced the pregnancy, but he said that he would never force his kid into karting or never force her to do anything. And I think in a way, that's his way of breaking the generational trauma in a way. I don't want to diagnose anything. I don't want to, like, I'm sure people will be angry at me saying, no, his dad is an amazing person. Like,
let's not get into that.
I'm not removing anything from, like, his bringing is upcoming, but him just saying that he's going to give his daughter the choice of whether or not she wants to be in this crazy world of motorsport kind of heals something in the whole Verstappen saga.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got to remember as well, he's always said, well, I've been stepdad to Penny for as many years. So, I mean, that's, she might have the same chance. She might want to go into F1, and that's even sooner. So maybe she's the next.
Both her dads, both her dad and her bonus dad were F1 drivers.
I love that term. Sorry, I just love that, dad and bonus dad.
I love that. I think there's always this, like, stigmatization of, like, oh yeah, your step parents sometimes can be evil, or you're probably not going to get along with them. I know my parents are divorced, and I have step parents, and it's always a bit awkward, and you never know how it's going to happen. And him stepping up like that and taking the role of second dad, I think it's amazing. He could have said, like, oh no, it's not my kid, I'm not gonna, but he did, and I think that's beautiful. And the fact that he brings her up any chance he's got and does not let his biological kid overshadow the kid that he's had for already. I think that's beautiful, because sometimes, like, step parents who have another kid with the other parent are going to tend to maybe focus more on their biological kid. But the fact that he considers both his daughters as his daughters, I think it's beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. So talking of kids, we move on to the race. And even before the race, as I say, talking of kids, we had the Lego parade lap, which was just the best thing. But honestly, you put these Formula One drivers into Lego cars that do only 20 miles an hour, and almost instantly they turn
obliterating.
Into children. Like, I was watching it live, and as they set off, immediately, I think it was the McLaren. I think Lando was driving the McLaren. He sets off. There's a Mercedes behind him. The Mercedes goes to the inside, and immediately he's blocking. I thought, they've got to do a whole lap yet. I know how this is going. None of these 10 cars are making it back. No. The state of the cars afterwards was just brilliant.
Just little message to the Miami Grand Prix: if you still have those cars and if they're still somewhat built and you want to donate them, I'll be willing to take one of them home, please. They're amazing.
Yeah, the man hours that went in,
Replace
man or
sprint
woman
races
hours,
with this.
but yeah, the time that went into building them, the expense, they put all these cars together, and then they've just gone and let Formula One drivers at them, and the pictures afterwards of the damage was just like, oh my god,
so funny. And also sending them on slicks on a wet track, that was a recipe for disaster. But you know what? Forget the sprint races. Bring me Lego F1 cars races any weekend. Any weekend.
It's strange how these things become like popular in sports, isn't it? Do you remember? I think it was like the World Cup, and they suddenly brought this like RC car to deliver the ball onto the pitch, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, I want one of those RC cars! I want one of those remote control Volkswagen Touaregs or whatever they were delivering the ball." And they became like the unofficial mascot. It could be the same, like, "Oh, what F1 without Lego cars? It's not the same." Go from children and a parade lap. Let's get into something a bit more serious again into the race. And it happened straight away. I was in the McLaren group chat saying, I've just got a feeling today, contact Verstappen Norris turn one, because they were of course lining up side by side, and I was slightly wrong, and I don't think there was contact, but turn two was sort of where it happened. And again, one of us I think is going to side with one, and I think I'm going to agree with you as well when we say this, but we'll get into that, I'm sure, in a second. Let's see what your verdict is on it. So Verstappen overcooks it turn one, gets it back, and then into turn two. What did you make of it? This was deemed as no further action. It seemed very aggressive on first watching of this.
So everyone in the group chat that I was talking with during the race, everyone was like wondering if that was going to be a penalty. If I thought it wasn't necessary, because it's turn one, Max was ahead. There was a lot of things that said maybe no further investigation, but it's also, this is typical turn one Max. Why is Lando even surprised at this point that Max is pulling this move? This is not new. This is not the first time it happens. It's typical. Now, do you anticipate it, or do you let it get to your head, or do you? But yeah, no. Overall, I don't think it should have been a penalty, and I'm happy it wasn't a penalty, because it's turn one. It's typical Max stuff, and yeah, we're used to it at this point. I think. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say.
Yeah. I was very glad. I said I need to see. I've been quite critical of Lando Norris and his racecraft. We're going to talk about that in a bit. And I said to someone in one of the chats or discussions or direct messages I talk to on a regular weekend, and I said, I need to see Norris get his elbows out at turn one. But even more than that, I needed to see what we saw, which was him racing smart. You know, he could have gone to the outside of Max, given where he was defending. He chose not to, dive back up the inside, kind of similar to Piastri's move later on in the race. And I think past Norris would have been taken out with Verstappen. You know, Verstappen sort of ran to the exit of the track, and he sort of said, I'm going to let you do that, and I'm going to cut on the inside. But it just meant he was on the outside for turn two for the, and there it is. And I have to say, as I say, my first reaction when I watched it was that was very aggressive from Max. It looked like he almost turned, in a left-hander, he almost turned right. And I was very glad to watch Anthony Davidson's SkyPad analysis after. I don't know whether on your feed you get the same Sky F1 feed that we get from the Brits. Sorry, a bit Brit bias there. But he was very good at saying, watch from, who was the guy behind? Was it Antonelli sitting in third, or was it Russell? He said, watch from this view. And he showed that when Verstappen turned left into the corner, there was a bit of, just the slightest bit of movement from the rear of his car. And so that move to the right was actually Verstappen catching a slide. And from seeing that, I suddenly went, okay, I understand. It wasn't no, get out of it. Lando was unfortunate. And so, as I say, I'm going to side with you. I don't think this was unfair. I don't think he warranted a penalty. But my McLaren fans are all just kicking me out the group chat as I say that, I'm sure.
We
So
yeah, group chat I'm in, where like there's a few McLaren fans, there's a few Red Bull fans, it's like very diverse. So, but everyone was like, "Wait, let's watch the replay. Let's watch what happened. Let's see what the analysts say." And then everyone was like, "Yeah, okay."
No one waits. No one waits for the analysts. You just jump straight in. Let your head rule. You've got the red mist.
You jump straight, and then you watch the analysis, and then you're like, "Oh man."
I can't believe I was so wrong. But yeah, it was after the. I thought, yeah, it's aggressive, but I'll have to, as you say, watch the analysis, watch the replays, and I was glad I did, as I say. So,
but then again, it's Max Verstappen. You cannot expect him to let you pass. You can't expect.
No.
Max was certainly not going to go, "Here you go, Lando. Go ahead. Pass me." No, he's going to be aggressive. That's his driving style, and he's always been aggressive on track. So yes, it's typical Max stuff.
Yeah, we'll come back to that. We'll put a pin in it, and we'll come back to that, because also at the start we saw Jack Doohan and Liam Lawson. His name's come up before. Come together as well, and so yeah, it was. I mean, I just think this was just unfortunate. Again, I don't think there was any penalty for it, other than the fact that both of them retired, which is a pretty heavy penalty, as it turns out. But yeah, what did you make of that one? Did you think, again, someone should have backed out, or did you put blame potentially more on one person than the other?
Well, I really thought that Lawson was going to get penalized for that. Was a bit surprised he did not. People analyze this saying, well, there probably should have been a penalty, but one of the things that you also wrote in the notes, so I know we're going to get to that at one point, is I'm absolutely gutted for Jack, because he's constantly on the radar. He's constantly being watched. He's constantly subjected to comments and of both the media and the fans. And this does not help his case. This does not help the rumors. And I was so sad to see that a race where he got if I remember correctly, a pretty decent qualifying. I don't remember. What did he qualify again?
I can't remember.
I can't remember, but he got a pretty decent qualifying for someone who has been struggling with qualifying since the beginning of the season. A chance at kind of proving himself, and then gets taken right in the beginning. And I thought, okay, we're going to see a lot of rumors, and we're going to see the internet is going to explode.
Yeah,
right after.
I mean, the moment that Franco Colapinto was signed, I've said it on this podcast. It was almost like Flavio Briatore was like, "Get me that guy's contract. I need to read through all the terms. What's the minimum number of races that Jack Doohan needs to do to satisfy this contract before I can swap the two over?" And it seems, with all the news today that we've seen, certainly, and all the rumors don't start nowhere, that by the next race, Imola, Franco will be in that seat over Jack Doohan. So this might be the last that we see, certainly in Alpine, in this seat, in this tenure. Maybe he comes back. I mean, hopefully, has he done enough to earn that? But yeah, that could be him out now for Franco, who I think we know is a handy driver. It's just unfair that Doohan had the seat, and the way it's been handled, I'd say, by Alpine on that front.
I was very impressed by Colapinto's debut last season when he replaced Sargent at Williams. I was very impressed, and I was excited to see what he could bring, but not in that way. I don't want it to happen in that way. When Alpine signed the contract with Colapinto, I was really excited. I was like, okay, that means we're going to have some sort of Franco, a Colapinto presence in the paddock and in F1, and he's going to stay in this environment in which he developed well. But then you see the comments under each and every Alpine's post, and it's exhausting. And most of the comments are absolutely sickening, wishing crashes, wishing they've insulted, Franco fans have insulted Doohan since the beginning. But then at one point they even started insulting Gasly, saying he did not deserve his seat. Yes.
I've not looked, and honestly, Alpine turned the comments off on one of the images, at least, that they shared on Instagram, and I just knew that was like a boiling pot. I'm not going near that. That's just a cesspit of comments and hateful just hate. It's absolutely, as you say, there is no place for it at all.
Especially, and one of the things that anger me the most is Alpine turning off the comments of the post means they're aware. Why are they not speaking out about this issue? And why is Franco not speaking out about this issue? Alpine have a strict no hate policy and no bullying policy. You can see it on their website. You can see it on their Instagram. Everywhere they say, please respect the drivers. Turning off the comments is not the solution. It's just you temporarily brushing aside the problem. But it just fuels the fan even more because it means that it's working. It means that they know Alpine knows and that they're trying to do something about it, but they're not. And this non-reaction from Alpine is what disgusts me. Alpine has the toxicity that Red Bull has been having recently, but without the results. And if I was Jack, I would tell my team, hey, either you defend me or I'm going on my own accords because this is not working. This is not how you treat a driver you've hyped up so much. They dropped Ocon at the last race to put Duhan in the seat. They've hyped up him being at Alpine in the past few months prior to them signing Colapinto. And then Briatore arrives, signs Colapinto, and then they just push Duhan aside and hype out Colapinto. This does not work. This is not how you handle a 2-seat, 3-driver situation. And I really hope that if Duhan gets dropped, that he gets out of this toxic environment because he does not deserve this. And I think I'm really, really sad that Alpine is not taking any action to defend the driver that they signed. If the plan all along was to get rid of Duhan and sign Colapinto, they should have done that first thing in the season because they're known to kind of mess up with contracts. We've seen it with Piastri, we've seen it with Alonso. So why now not do it if you know that you're not gonna, if you know pertinently that this driver is not gonna last? Why make him suffer even more and go through online bullying when you know that anyways nothing's gonna change?
100%, 100%. As I say, the rumors started the second they signed Colapinto, and there was no action. There was no response from Alpine when they saw all of the comments, when they saw all of the rumors, to quiet it down and say, no, Jack Doohan is signed to this seat. It is his seat. He's under no pressure. We just want to see him develop and grow. There was nothing. There was just silence. And it'll be very telling when they do the announcement, like how they do it, how they react. But as I say, they have gone about it wrong. And this is a team with mismanagement written throughout the top levels. Unfortunately, as you say, Piastri, Alonso, that's just the beginning of it. I don't get a strong feeling from this team that they're coherent, that they're all working, gelling. It feels like they're in a bit of a muddle, and management wise, they've sort of brought in Flavio, who himself has had a bit of a checkered past. He's there pulling strings, and maybe he's playing that hard ass, going like, no, you've got to be a villain. And sure, to be in management, sometimes you do need to do things that people won't agree with. And if, as you say, if they do want Colapinto in the seat instead of Doohan at some point in the season, you can do it the right way. But it's a tough call. At the end of the day, it is a tough call, and you do have to sit down with Jack and say, we're really sorry, but I don't think they're in that place. They'll just say, Jack, you're out. And that's not the way to deal with it. That's not the way to build someone's confidence. That's not the way to bring him back. And as you say, I hope when it happens that they do put that support network around Jack so that his career is not ruined by this moment. So
just this morning they posted like kind of a Miami recap, and I looked really quick through the comments. All of them were people saying, oh, make the announcement now, please make it you do. And sorry, but things like that. Yeah. Just saying like, oh, get him out. It's just this, it's toxic. And I was looking at that, I'm like, this is not why I got into the sport. This is not the unity that we want to see in the sport. This is not. And I really hope for Colapinto's sake that if the rumors turn out to be true and he drives with Alpine at Imola and from then, that he does well, because it's absolutely going to backfire if he cannot deliver. And the fans that have been pushing for him to be in and to have a seat this season are going to turn against him because they're toxic like that. And I think it's really sad because it puts Doohan and Franco under pressure in a team that has management issues and has had management issues in the past. And yeah, I feel sad for the both of them and really wish the best to the both of them, whatever the outcome is.
Absolutely, absolutely, yes. Let's move on from that. As I say, hopefully they deal with it the right way, correctly, and that they do grow as a team. So let's delve into the fight, the racecraft, if you like, of the McLaren cars who had to come through Verstappen in this race. He'd led after turn one. We've already covered that bit. So we had Piastri coming up Verstappen. We had then, after that, once Piastri had gone through him, Norris continuing his recovery drive from that turn one incident, had to come up to him. And again, it was just to look at the two ways that they went about it. As I said, I want to remove my McLaren bias from the fight, as I say. So I put down in the notes, as I say, that it took Piastri longer in terms of how long he was behind Verstappen, but he seemed to bide his time more. Like, he waited more for the laps, he put him under pressure, he sort of pulled him around a bit more. And then when he went for it, it took him less attempts than Lando Norris. Again, I don't want to sway you, but it feels like Lando Norris sort of went for it a few times when the move perhaps wasn't on, and then sort of came at it again. And I feel partly this is the way you race against Verstappen. You come and surprise him, you come and shock him, and you sort of put him in a position he can't defend. But what did you think of that? Let's compare Lando and Piastri when it comes to fighting Verstappen. What did you think?
Well, both of them fought incredibly well. My heart rate throughout this whole race, my heart rate was through the roof. I was like, this is not good.
Do you know, I did put this on Instagram. I was building my little Lego McLaren that I put together, and this is going on. My heart rate was all over the place, and I was there trying to put stickers on. This was the point when I was putting stickers on. I'm like this with both my hands, like shaking, trying to put the stick. I was like, no, okay, I'm gonna have to put this down for a second. And just my heart rate. Just that's the way it is when, especially McLaren, but when anyone comes up and races against Verstappen, you kind of expect high tension, and that was it. You treat him like the hind legs of a donkey, and as I say, Piastri and Norris. Sorry, I cut you there, but Piastri and Norris were doing so in very different ways. Sorry, I'll let you carry on there.
No, but the first bit of race of the season, me and my friend were actually building Legos while waiting for it to start, and we continued building it during the race, and I was struggling with the little stickers as well because you're watching, and then. But yes, I think both Lando and Oscar have a different driving style and a different driving analysis, if I can put it like that. Oscar is much more cool and calm and composed, so he's going to take the time to analyze the situation before making a move. Maybe that's why he took a bit more time passing Max, but he still did it flawlessly and did it and executed it in a way that allowed him to have such a huge gap between him and the others. Whereas Lando is a bit more frantic, a bit more like not necessarily impulsive, but he's going to play with that element of surprise to surprise Max, which is something you have to do. So both of them defended amazingly, and both of them passed Max in an amazing way. But you can see that they both have their driving styles, which sometimes is an advantage, sometimes a disadvantage. But yeah, no, honestly, I think when you compare, it's tough to compare the two of them because they have such different racing styles and personalities, but amazing outcomes, if I can put it like that.
Yeah, I mean, they both got the job done, and relatively quickly as well. And it was just interesting to me to watch the way that Piastri did it, to say, okay, he pretty much almost had his entire car alongside. Now, I feel like Verstappen's defense is wherever you break, whether you're making the corner or not. I brake 5 meters later, and Piastri was very good at setting that up and going, okay, you brake where you want, but you're not making the corner. And then he sort of read it beautifully and said, okay, and got through. Norris played the same sort of card. Now, admittedly, he wasn't as far ahead when he tried that one, but he still tried to stick it around the outside. And this is where I've been ever so slight. Again, I'm talking like the last 0.1% of a Formula One driver here, where I've been that little bit critical of Norris, where he has said, I'm always going to go for the move. He said this in the debrief on the sort of debrief truck, if you like, it was this weekend. And he said, I'm always going to go for the move. And he said this in the quotes after the race, he'll be criticized if he goes for the move. If he doesn't go for the move, he gets criticized. And I don't think that's fair. I'm not criticizing him that much. I'm just saying this is the tiny little mind games where you sort of sometimes just have to back out of a move. It was very close, but yeah, there was that one move around the outside of turn one. He left him just that little bit of road, and he eventually went across the curb, and it didn't pay off. That I thought, okay, that one, does he, doesn't he? But it was here or there, and eventually they did both get through. And it's interesting, isn't it? When they come up to racing against Verstappen, you see the difference in their racecraft. But what we haven't seen yet this season, and is coming, Norris versus Verstappen. The other one. What hasn't happened this year, but is coming, is Norris versus Piastri.
Yes. I'm terrified that we're going to have another Mercedes situation because I'm not necessarily like the biggest McLaren fan, but I really like Lando. I really like Oscar, but it's going to be a tough season for both of them because everyone thought at the beginning of the season that Lando was going to be the one coming out of this, coming out victorious of this teammate rivalry. And everyone was expecting Lando to be the favorite for a championship this year. And then Oscar comes in and proves everyone wrong by saying, oh, I'm not just a second driver. And it's going to be highly entertaining to see which of them comes out victorious in this fight. But I feel like we've seen that it can easily strain a relationship, and just from last year, a bit of not good things happened in between them. And after, I think it was Hungary, yes, Oscar's first win after Hungary, Lando was already a bit bitter. And I think it's sort of this back and forth of Lando's been there for years, pulling this car out of the trenches, and then comes in Oscar, struggles for a year, and then the car is better, and then gets the opportunity that Lando has only ever dreamed of having in his last 7 years of Formula One. So I think that's going to be an interesting battle to look at. So I really hope that the outcome, this might be my delusional side, but I don't want this to be a bad outcome. I want them to have as much maturity as possible and just realize that they're still young. They still got, that wasn't me. They're still young. They still got potential. They still got years ahead of them in terms of competition. So
Lando Norris is 25, Oscar Piastri is 24, and they've both got contracts through, I think, till at least through to 2029.
No, exactly. So they still have the time. They still have the time to develop and become even better, and to not let this year, where this is the first year that they've actually got an amazing car, an amazing team, an amazing opportunity. So yes, lots of surprises, lots of unexpected, but hopefully enough maturity to kind of have a look past okay, we're teammates, we're rivals, but both of them are going to have their chances because both of them are championship material. I don't know if what I said makes sense.
It absolutely does. Yeah, I feel like the emphasis will come from, as I say, the 25 and 24. The maturity needs to come from management. It needs to come from above them in the team. As a McLaren fan, I want to see both of them because I know they'll perform at the best level. Martin Brundle said it, that he thinks this is the strongest pairing on the grid, which is a big claim when I think all of the polls pre-season put Ferrari at like 70% winners, if you ask that question, with McLaren a clear second with about 20%, and then everyone else. So to suddenly jump and go, actually, no, it's McLaren with that best lineup, I wouldn't disagree. You know, Leclerc's got things he hasn't proven. Hamilton, it's a big question. Has he gone past his best years? But here we've got two drivers that are reaching the prime, and as you say, Norris pulled this team. He's into year 7 with McLaren, and the first 4.5, 5 years, this wasn't a competitive team. Even 2 years ago, as you say, Piastri was referring to the fact that at Miami they were both lapped a couple of times, and suddenly this year they're absolutely dominant. I mean, let's talk about the dominance of McLaren. You know, yes, they were helped. Their pit stops happened during a virtual safety car, but they won this race by plus 30 seconds from the next best, and it was just pace. They came through Verstappen like he was nothing, and as you said, he's the nearest challenger to them. So I mean, it was absolutely frightening. And yeah, I even as a McLaren fan hope that races are closer than this, because I want to see that competition. I've said it throughout. Yes, I'm absolutely thrilled to celebrate 2 1-2 finishes this weekend, maximum points that we could get, but I don't want to watch that every single weekend like it was here. But it was a big message, a big statement to the rest of the field that you give us half a chance, we can put a performance like that on you. So it's a big year for McLaren, and it's a big year for that relationship there.
I totally agree with you, and I'm actually really happy to see McLaren finally getting the result that they fought for so many years. But one of the things that I would say, I'm going to say it in the most positive way possible, it kind of makes me laugh, is seeing Lando and Zach Brown try to push the narrative that they're still underdogs and they still are struggling with the car, when you see this car is a rocket ship. And it sort of bothers me, because why are you trying to push the narrative that you are not good like you are? Like, enjoy the victories, enjoy the result of hardship and of like work and I don't know why, because you saw Lando saying he's struggling with the car and he felt terrible after qualifying, which, okay, fair enough, but he still managed to pull a P2 in qualifying, a P2 in the race, and I think only finished outside the podium once since the beginning of the season. He's clearly not struggling, and hearing him complain about the car kind of annoys me, because I'm like, your result do not correlate with how you feel. How do you explain that? Why is it that, in your opinion, the car is so bad when you see that there's a 30-second gap between Piastri and Russell? So
I mean, I spoke about it before with Verstappen when he's going, "Oh, the car's terrible. It's not where I want," and then he goes and puts it on pole. So, I mean, the only caveat I've got, and as I say, when you're trying to remove bias, you switch who it is you're talking about, and I feel like these are Formula One drivers at the top of their game. They demand perfection from everything, and that's the only way I can hear when they are complaining, like, "Oh, we're still working, we're still fine tuning," because at the end of the day, if they come out of any session and they go, "Oh, I could have gone half a tenth quicker," that's half a tenth. You know, if you sat there going, "We could have been 5 tenths quicker," then yeah, alarm bells should be going off. But they will never get out the car and go, "Do you know what? I got every tenth. I got every thousandth of a second out of this car today, and I'm pretty happy with that." There will never be that mentality that way. So, and I do. I play football, and last week won pretty handsomely. But I sat there afterwards going, "Yeah, but I was at fault for 2 of the opposition's goals. I'm a defender, so you know when it goes wrong, it's like I look at what goals we conceded, and I'm sat there going, "Yeah, we won by 5 goals, but I was at fault for 2 of the goals that went past me, and just 20 seconds of the match sit and haunt me that I think next week I'm not going to do the same. I'm going to be better. I'm going to play better. And no matter who sat there going, yeah, but you won the race, you came second, or you won the match, whatever it is, you're sat there going, I have to be perfect. And no one is, but you just sit there and dwell on it and go, I have to be perfect.
I completely understand, but I think that Lando is, and I'm just going to start by saying I love that Lando is so open about his mental health, and
oh, absolutely, yeah,
and I think it's wonderful, and we need more of that. But hearing him have this like self-deprecating thoughts and kind of like always negative behavior towards himself and his performance is becoming very heavy on his mental, and also like the mental well-being of like the team, and how we visualize the team, because he's making comments like these, and then people are bashing him online because people don't understand why he's making these comments if he's winning races. And I get that you always want to be perfect because the sport is ruthless, but I think there's a point where you can be complaining about the car, but it's more, okay, what do we do then? What's the solution? Because there's only so much whining you can do, and only you can wallow in self-pity and just complain about the car, but what's the outcome? What's the solution there? Because staying static is not the solution. Staying in your little bubble of like not feeling good about yourself, and your little bubble of anxiety is not the solution long term. And I think in a way Oscar has learned this, and Lando has yet to learn this and will eventually learn it. But he's going to continue to struggle if he doesn't learn it anytime soon.
Correct. Yeah, we'll see how it plays out over the season. Yeah, it's a big talking point, isn't it? If the car isn't suiting Lando, is it suiting Lando? Because he's got 1 win this year. Piastri's now got 4. He's probably feeling under pressure. He's feeling, I came to the season as favourite, and he's got to do the work now. He's got to realise that he has to beat his teammate in the same car. So as good as they make that McLaren, there's always going to be someone.
And I just want to say, I'm not invalidating his feelings. I'm not invalidating his thoughts. I'm the first person to be. I'm my worst enemy. I'm the first person to be saying to myself, oh, I should have done this better. I'm good. This went wrong. This went wrong. But then you kind of have to have that mentality of, okay, but what's next?
Yeah.
What's the solution? Do I stay in this mindset that I put myself in, or do I change my mindset to better my performance?
Yeah. Hopefully we see that. As a long-term follower of Lando's, I know that he's better now than he used to be. But as you say, it'd just be good if sometime he was just positive, and you feel like everyone's putting their arm around him going, you're a phenomenal driver. Except me. I'm criticizing him every week on this podcast, so he's probably listening to it and going, oh, that Perry Brown, he's never happy with me. But no, in general, obviously he should be happy, and I'm sure that when he thinks back, he does go, yeah, I did really well. I extracted everything I could. And interestingly, the sort of the team that I like to get to here is then Williams. And McLaren have come through this journey from the back of the grid to where they are now. And James Vowles took over Williams. He is quoted, I've seen, as saying that I don't care where we are in 2023. I don't care where we are in 2024. And I don't care where we are in 2025. So the restoration project begins in 2026, or they were targeting 2026. Well, I'm very happy to say that on the performance of this race, especially in 2025, that it's looking like things are coming good. And if we talk about the sort of Alpine management disaster of like the team crumbling around perhaps what's going on there, you've got a very strong Williams team, and they were mixing it with Mercedes, with Ferrari. And yeah, let's get to the Williams versus Ferrari battle, because I was really impressed with Williams this weekend.
Williams this season is a team of proving my previous team wrong. On one side, you have Albon, who went through hell at Red Bull, and people were saying Albon was a problem, and he's up. And I was sort of anxious when they signed Sainz, because I was like, when Williams signed Sainz, because I was thinking, okay, Albon's going to get overshadowed again by Sainz, who's a race winner, who's done amazingly at Ferrari, but Albon has been proving since the beginning of the season that he shouldn't be overlooked, he shouldn't be brushed aside, and he has his place in this team as much as Sainz does. And on the other hand, you have Carlos Sainz, who is proving Ferrari wrong for dropping him and saying, you wanted a better driver, you wanted another driver, another era. Well, this is what you're getting. And I'm here thriving at Williams, and he's done amazingly well. Had a bit of a rough start, but he's adapted so quickly. And I'm impressed. I was terrified. I was like, this is either going to be the best move of his career or it's going to end his career. And so far, I stand corrected. I'm so impressed with how both Albon and Sainz have been doing. And if William continued delivering like that for this season, but also 2026, maybe they're going to make a comeback as a top 3 team. I would not be surprised.
Yeah, and I loved when Martin Brundle, again, I don't know if you got the same commentary team on the Fiji watch, but he said, you know what, this is right. This feels right. We've got McLaren, we've got Williams, and we've got Ferrari all sort of mixing it for the points. He said, this feels like the 90s again. This is 90s Formula One. So, yeah, it was really good to see Williams back there. As you say, Sainz, I've said before that Sainz is one of those drivers who gets signed to a team. And when he got signed to McLaren, even I was a bit like, okay, well, we got Lando at least, which is a bit negative. But at the same time, it was like, okay, let's see how he gets on. He was at Renault. He did pretty well there. He was a consistent point scorer. But I thought, this isn't a guy that's going to challenge for race wins. Well, of course, he did challenge for that. He never got it at McLaren, but he was close. Monza 2020, he was so close to that win. Obviously, the race Gasly won, and he was second. And it was like, oh, if he had 2 more laps, he would have taken that win, that historic win for McLaren. And then he gets to Ferrari, and even Ferrari fans are going, why have we signed him? He's not going to win races. And I said, no, trust us McLaren fans. You've got a gem in Carlos Sainz, and he proved that. And again, you go Sainz, Leclerc, who was better to keep on, because Lewis Hamilton, a 7-time champion, becomes available. That's the question. Which driver do you make unavailable suddenly? Because you don't turn down a 7-time champion. But yeah, with Williams, I think, have done the same thing. They've picked up an absolute gem, exactly the driver that they needed at that point. But let's skip ahead to the final corner, talking of Sainz very quickly. And that move on the inside of Hamilton, that's the last corner. It's kind of like the first corner, isn't it? You treat it differently. It's the last corner. It's the last chance saloon. He sort of lunged a move up the inside, and there was no penalty given for this. But what did you make of that move? I thought it was. Well, I'm not going to say. You say first.
I missed the last few laps, so I did not see that. But I was driving to work and having the race just as a background noise, because without the visual, just wanting to listen to it. And the commentators were talking about the battle of like Hamilton versus Sainz and saying, oh, it's close. Oh no, he's back. Oh no. I was like, oh my God. Okay, the fact that we have a Williams battling a Ferrari, I would not have predicted that at the beginning of the season. No. And the fact that it's Sainz battling both Leclerc and Hamilton, it's almost poetic.
Yeah. They kept saying, didn't they, like, he's racing against the car he used to be in last season. Yeah, it was a bit of a lunge, that last lap. But again, watching Ant on the Skypad, he says, so Sainz turned around and said Hamilton turned in early, and he went, well, here's lap 57, the last lap of the race, versus lap 56. And yeah, Hamilton does turn very early into the corner, and then Sainz at that point, I think, just goes, well, this is happening. He just keeps shoving him. Like, it feels like the contact never ends, and he just keeps pushing him. Luckily, I do feel justice kind of came about. Hamilton carried on. Neither was out on the spot or anything like that. Had it been worse, then I think, yeah, Sainz might have copped a penalty. But to not get anything was a bit like, well, okay, other drivers that are on penalty points were sitting there going, hang on, he didn't get points for that. So yeah, there was that. But no, it was good to see that. And let's kind of finish up by talking about the Ferrari radio shenanigans.
Absolute gem, absolute highlight.
It seems they give us quite a bit, and we talk about giving Hamilton time at Ferrari to gel. Well, I feel like the honeymoon period's over, and Zerra said, "No, come on." I'm 100% Team Hamilton on this. You've got one of your cars approaching quickly the other one. Like, as soon as they get from within 3 seconds to within 2, you should be saying, "Do you know what? He's faster. Let him through." He's always going to benefit you if he doesn't hold him up. And he sat there getting held up behind him. His tires getting cooked, and he's going, "Come on, guys, are we going to go and have a tea whilst you're at it?" Very British.
Lewis has always been kind of not necessarily quiet on the radio, but like at the beginning of the season, you see he's never really wanted to complain, whereas you have like Leclerc absolutely roasting his engineer, absolutely being sassy on the team radio, and I absolutely love that, because Leclerc's always been like kind of like, okay, I'm gonna be nice, and him just deciding, no, I'm done with this BS. And Hamilton following, saying, I'm done as well. I think that was absolutely brilliant. And I think if this is not a wake-up call for Ferrari, I don't know what it's going to be.
Yeah.
The channel I'm watching on is actually a French-Canadian one, so it's all in French, but they have often the same commentary as any other channel in English. We have the same broadcast as Sky Sport, and 95% of the time the analysis correlates with what they say on Sky Sports at the same time. And even the analysts were like, if this is not the wake-up call Ferrari needed, what is going to be the wake-up call? Because you have both of your drivers that are not mad at each other. They're mad at the team.
Yeah.
It's beautiful to see, I think, seeing them finally pull the plug and say, hey, we're done with that. We were promised an amazing year, and we're struggling to get in the top 5. What has happened?
Yeah. They've got 2 weeks now before they arrive at Imola. Their home race. I mean, they needed it now more than ever. So we'll see if they go away from this one and do work on it. But I'm aware that we're almost at 30 minutes on this current recording. So don't want to run over. Don't want to run over 30 minutes. So let's wrap up there before we hit 45. Eddie, it's been fantastic talking to you for this. Last question on this, last point I ask everyone. Driver of the weekend and highlight of the weekend from yourself, please.
For driver, I'm going to have to say, honestly, Piastri has kind of like an honorable mention, but my highlight was my driver, Albon. This man has been proving himself time and time again, and this weekend, finishing in front of both the Ferraris, top 5. You can dream of a better performance than that in a Williams, and he's been proving himself time and time again, and just proving that he's just as good as Carlos Sainz and deserves his place in the team just as much as Carlos does, and that he's improved in the past few years. And yeah, I was fairly impressed with everything he did this weekend. So I think that it goes out to him. Excellent. And as for the highlight, I would say, well, the racing itself was kind of a fever dream. But I think the most fever dream part was seeing the drivers drive Lego cars. I think that might seem childish, but that's a highlight in itself. I'd bring at least one Lego car race to the calendar next year. I beg of you, it would be amazing.
Maybe only 2 or 3 laps. Yeah, that's so. For driver of the week, I had 3 choices. So I like to cover myself. So Alex Albon, really strong shout. with you on that. I feel like I can't pick a McLaren driver, and I haven't yet. So, I mean, Oscar Piastri makes my top 3.
Obviously, and I couldn't agree more.
I can't because of my bias. So, luckily,
I'm gonna say it, Oscar Piastri.
Did you completely unprovoked? You said Oscar Piastri. Oh, fantastic!
Completely unprovoked, Oscar Piastri, driver of the day.
So I'm going to go to my third choice. I think he deserved so much more from that sprint race, and then recovered well in the main race again. He qualified well in the second qualifying, showing it wasn't a fluke. So Kimi Andrea Antonelli is my driver of the weekend. Yes. So there was 3 strong candidates for very different reasons, and I think we covered all of them there. But my highlight of the weekend was going to be the Lego cars. So I should have known you would absolutely take them. I can't think of another that came close to the Lego race. That was just, I just had everything for me. As you say, it had the drivers being themselves, having fun, which is unusual for Formula One sometimes, to have a bit of fun. But the activation, everyone that I saw immediately going out and buying Lego sets, and the fact that Lego showed up in such a big way, what a brilliant bit of marketing that was, truly. So brilliant. It has to be the highlight. I normally don't go for the same one, but there was just nothing that second wouldn't even be close to that. So top marks to Lego for that and making them drivable.
Brilliant. I think that the Miami vibes kind of bring out a more goofy side to the drivers. They kind of let it out of their system, whether it be with helmets, car liveries, or just like silly things like this. And just Oscar doing the gritty after he won his race. Who would have expected that?
Or attempting the gritty. I don't think it was
attempting. Yes.
If he got driver of the weekend, it wasn't for doing the gritty.
No,
he did
this man is a driver and will stay a driver and will not be a professional grittier. But I think that a lot of people kind of bash on Miami and say it's probably not the best race, but the vibes are immaculate, and
it's grown kind of it really has.
It kind of brings out something in the drivers that you don't really see at other races, and I love that.
Absolutely, yes. So we will wrap up there because we are approaching 45 minutes now. So it's going to take an age to do the editing of this, but just to do the download of the episode, it's probably going to sort of finish about 1 a.m. Eddie, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been so easy to talk, as we may have demonstrated by the fact this has gone on a little bit past the 45 minutes, but it's always a pleasure. We'll have you back on, no doubt, soon. We'll try not to get a sprint race next time, but it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for inviting me again. It was great to be back there as well. I really enjoy yapping about F1. So hopefully next time we don't have to cover a sprint race. Maybe Montreal, I'm attending, so will be my first F1 race live. So that's going to be an experience, and I'm really excited for this to happen.
Fantastic. Yeah, we'll pen it in. We'll get it penned in because I want to hear that. Like we had Kelly on, who was at the British Touring Cars last weekend. I like to get that side. So there's myself watching from home going, I wish I was there. And we'll get to hear you, and I will pretend I'm not very jealous of your trackside experience. So yeah, we'll pin that in. We'll get you in after the Canadian Grand Prix and get your views, and possibly even before. We've got races before then. So until then, Eddie, thank you so much. And to everyone listening at home, sorry if it's well past your bedtime and you thought it was going to be a quiet, like a short little podcast episode, and it's turned into your entire workday consumed by this 4-hour long episode. I apologize, but thank you for sticking it out. Thank you for listening, and good day, goodbye, wherever you are. Hope it is a fantastic day, and look forward to speaking to you again soon. Goodbye.